Yes or no, straightforward question. Were you offered a job, and what was the job?
I was offered a job, and I answered that.
You said no, you wouldn't take the job. Was it the Secretary of the Navy?
Look,
was it the Secretary of the Navy job?
Anything that goes beyond that is for others to talk about.
You can't have a seated U.S. congressman and former three-star admiral say he was offered a job in the administration and then say there was nothing problematic. By definition, Congressman Sestak has alleged 3 felonies.
Let's welcome back our panel to talk about this. Tucker Carlson, Mara Liasson, and also Charles Krauthammer with us. Tucker, I want to start with you. ISA is using words felony and bribe.
Right.
What do you make of it?
Well, I'm not a lawyer. I know a bribe when I see one, that this clearly qualifies as one. I mean, going to a candidate and saying, look, don't run, throw the fight, and we'll pay you. And that's what Sestak is alleging the White House said to him. I'm really surprised. This is a sophisticated group of people, communication staff especially. I'm very surprised by Robert Gibbs' performance on CBS this weekend, in which he basically said, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to get into it, is what he said verbatim. And the truth is, yes, he is. Because once you admit, if you're the White House, once you admit that you know the answer to this question, you're going to have to provide it. By the way, this, I think, you know, if you're a Republican thinking, well, does it matter if the Republicans control Congress? Subpoena power. Yes, it does matter. The Republicans at this point can't really compel the White House to answer the question, but that could change come November. And I promise you this is one of the first things they'll attempt to answer.
And it may not even take that long. I mean, it sounds like they're really goading the House Ethics Committee at this point to get going, or they're going to launch something without the committee.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, if there were conversations, there was no quid pro quo, the kind of legally defined, you can have this job if you drop out. There clearly were discussions about a job, and clearly Sestak thought he was offered one. He was being offered one. But I think the White House is going to probably have to provide more details because I don't think it's going to go away. I don't think it's a huge deal. I think White Houses offer people jobs all the time in order to clear the field for their preferred candidates. But I also think that Sestak really did himself and the White House a huge disservice. I mean, why go out there and say this? You know, he's going to be asked about this ad nauseum, and this is not what he wants to talk about.
Charles, what do you make of their response so far? I mean, Tucker mentioned Robert Gibbs talking about it this weekend, and he said, well, we've had our lawyers look at it, and based on those conversations, we think everything's fine. So he admits there were conversations. I mean, nobody's disputing that at this point, but not a more solid denial from them.
Well, I found that to be an amazing statement. Our lawyers have looked at it, and they found nothing inappropriate. Well, I have a suggestion. How about allowing the rest of us to have a look at the same evidence and make our own judgment? Not that I want to impugn the absolute integrity of the White House lawyers who would exonerate the people who hired them, pay them, and invite him to White House state dinners. I'm sure they're absolutely objective on this. But they have admitted they've looked at the evidence, so let's open it up and look at it. I think it really becomes an issue when you get Democrats demanding an answer. When you had Anthony Weiner, a New York Democrat, who said, you know, it's about time, let's get something here on the table, stop avoiding it. When you get a lot of them, or even a few Democrats who, if it's a Republican issue alone, it looks like a partisan attack. You can probably escape, especially since Democrats control the Congress and they have a subpoena power. But if you get a few Democrats demanding this, I think it's going to become inescapable. Although I must say that this is, look, I know if you do it unsubtly, it's illegal, but it's done all the time, clearing the field with subtle offers. You know, I mean, if you leave a horse's head in a bed with a note attached, get out. I think you're not supposed to do that. If you say, would you rather run for the mayorship of a northern city or have a nice warm embassy in the Caribbean, and offered in that way, I think it's accepted.
And for now, we don't know what the offer was and exactly how it went down. Tucker, what do you make of those who say this is just about Republicans trying to help out Pat Toomey because he's running behind Sestak at this point?
I actually think that this may help Sestak, to be honest with you. Sestak on the issues is more liberal than I would say the majority of Pennsylvania general election voters, particularly on guns and abortion. It's got a 100% rating from NARAL and the Brady campaign, unlike the other senator from the state. So putting distance between himself and the Obama White House, not necessarily a bad thing in a general election. By the way, if you look at Pennsylvania 12, Spitz did not run, the Democrat, did not run as an Obama clone. Far from it. He ran against Obama in many ways. So actually, I think this helps. I'm not suggesting that's why he said it, but I just don't think it hurts
You know
him.
what? I think he needs to put distance between himself and the Obama administration on issues, not on this, not on something that casts aspersions on the ethical nature of the Obama White House. I mean, Kritz was pro-gun, pro-life, anti-healthcare reform.
Right.
That's why he prevailed. Sestak can't say any of those things.
And Charles, I want to ask you, what do you think was Representative Sestak's motivation here? I mean, he obviously has gotten himself to the nomination. He is in the big Senate race for the fall. But why take on the White House like this?
I think he made a rookie mistake. I don't think there was any intent here. He just, I think he was asked about this, or did he volunteer it? I think it was in response to a question, and he gave an honest answer, which is not always, you know, sometimes you want to evade. And I think it was, you know, a classic, what's called a gaffe in Washington, when you accidentally speak the truth. And that's
That
why,
is an accident in Washington often.
Absolutely, and that's why I think he's been bitten on this. But I must say, I'm a bit of a cynic on all this. When you're running in a primary for the presidency and you're behind and the party wants you out of the race so you can have unity, and the offer is, if you get out of the race, we pay off your debts. How is that different? Why isn't that a bribe? That's also tampering with an election, at least technically speaking. I'm not that offended. I'm happy to see it all happening, but I must say, unless it was an outright, I give you this if you do that, it's the stuff that goes on all the time.
Except in this case with public money, though.
Yeah, I suppose if it's public money, although a job in the administration, I mean, it can't be the first time an ambassadorship hasn't ever been offered, or a deputy secretary of that. It's done all the time. I mean, we see it openly in campaigns when people pay off a debt. But it's not as if this is something new. It's just that it's so overt.
They need a better explanation. If they say, their lawyers say nothing inappropriate or illegal happened, then fine. Then explain what did happen. That there were general discussions about how talented he was and how he could have a great future ahead of him, or something like that. I mean, they just have to come up with something better and something that actually answers the question.
Well, we'll wait and see if we get to the bottom of this ever through congressional investigation or otherwise. Panel, thank you very much.